Now I'm going to start off with the basics. So right here I'm in this Ford truck. I'll be using direct current. So I'm going to switch it over here. Now it's okay if you see a little bit of reading. I usually clear this out. What you want to do on a car battery, when the car's not on, you want to read somewhere 12.6. That's the ideal voltage for a car battery. So you can hold it on the positive, red on the positive, black on the negative. So right now it's 12.47. And I want to say that's okay. And then if you can, you could stick your probe into the connector. If it'll stay, you can actually do a charging test. I'll teach you how to do that right now. So when I'm about to start, I'm going to expect the starter to draw amperage from the battery. So I'm going to see the voltage drop to near 10, and that's pretty common for most cars. So I am going to record. Here's a function that you want to record the minimum. So it's going to record the lowest voltage that this saw while starting the vehicle. Now 10.4 was the lowest, so that test passed. You don't want the voltage to drop below around 9.5 or so. That sort of shows a sign of the battery being weak or aged. Now that the car started, the alternator is charging the battery. Now for charging systems, you want to see around 14 volts of charging. If you see battery volts, that means the alternator is not charging or there's a bad connection somewhere. So I'm going to go back to the normal reading, and I should see around 13 to 14 volts of charging. See, I have 14.06 volts, so that means the vehicle is charging the battery. Now to test if the alternator is reacting to the drop in voltage of the battery, I'm going to turn on the heater, the defroster, and everything that is going to take amperage, and I'm going to see this drop and increase. Now if you saw this drop and increase, that's because I'm putting a huge load on the charging system. I turn on the headlights, the high beam, the window defroster, and the heater on high. And the alternator detected that, and it raises amperage to maintain the charging system and keeps the battery charging. Because if you have an alternator that's not responsive, in a rainy day, say your windshield wipers running and everything, it will start draining the battery, and you wouldn't notice until you do it a couple of cycles and it fully drain your battery, and then you think you just need a jump start. So it's very important to know the root cause of your issue. Now I just turned off the car. At first it was charging at 14. So every time you turn off a car, your battery will have a static charge of above 13, and it's going to slowly drop. So you never want to take this as the reading of your battery. You want it to settle, or you can turn on your headlight a little bit to take away the surface charge. Now if you wait a while and you still see it dropping, you want to wait until it's settled, and that's your true reading. as of now, I wouldn't take this as my true reading. Let's move on to the next. Another test you could do with the voltage setting is testing out the coolant. I prefer doing this in a cold engine. Now what you're going to do is you're going to dunk these two terminals into the coolant, and you don't want it to go above 300 millivolts, which is 0.3 of a volt. Right here is 0.05. Now if you go to millivolts, it's 30 millivolts. So you don't want it to be 10 times as much, because now that could affect the electronics in the vehicle. Turn this into voltage. Now if you turn on the ignition, which is the second click, I'm expecting, and put the negative on the negative side of the battery, I'm gonna expect to see power on both sides of the fuse. If you see power on one side and not the other, that fuse is bad. See, I see 12.5 on one side, and I should see the same on the other side. You can go straight down the line with all the fuses. That's another quick way to test if there's power going through all the fuses, and if any of them are blown, so you don't have to pull out each one to see the condition of the filament.